Welcome to Politics Done Right on KPFT. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Give me a call at 713-526-5738. That is 713-526-KPFT. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you very much for giving me this 1 hour. As usual, you know we're going to have a great show today. Shannon, how art thou doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. It is mighty hot out there, but it could be worse, like last week. So
I know.
Luckily, we're surviving together, Houston.
Absolutely, we're surviving, but you know,
summer's here.
Summer's here, and for folks who are listening from wherever part of the country that you're in, if you're cooler than, what's the temperature now? About 90?
Ooh, it is like 93, but it feels like much worse.
Yes, I think I heard you saying in there it felt like 102. So, folks, yes. Those of you that are listening in New York, or those of you that are listening in Nevada or wherever, Nevada's probably hot.
No. Yeah, that's brutal.
Nevada's probably hot. But anyhow, we have a great show. As you guys know, I always scour the internet for the what's going on and that sort of thing. And I came across a great blog, a great piece of writing about something that I speak about all the time, something that you hear us talk about. So we have a great person here. Today we speak to Jeff Blackwood. Jeff is the president and CEO of Pathfinder Health Innovations. He was forced to leave the state. These are his words. He was forced to leave the state of Kansas because their right-wing trickle-down economic policies are devastating the state. Blackwood wrote a long essay detailing the reason for moving the company. It is an essay the governor of Kansas should read. And of course, I forgot to put the link in the blog. So as soon as I get off the radio, I'm going to have the link to his blog post, because I linked to it from another blog post that I wrote about it. But it was a great piece of writing. Look, folks, before I get to the program, however, I want to remind all our listeners that KPFT is a bastion of intelligent voices and programs. As a political activist myself, my favorites are The Monitor with Mark Bebawi on Mondays at
7 p.m.
The Think Wing Radio with Mike Honig on Mondays at,
I believe it's 9 p.m. 9 p.m.
Partisan Gridlock, you do that show with whom?
Jeff Berg at 3 p.m. on Fridays.
And Jazz Latino, Afro-Cuban Lattice Jazz at its best, hosted by Juan Flores on Mondays at 10 p.m. And Juan also does a show on HD3 here from noon till 2 on Thursdays as well. And of course, there's Asamblea Popular de Houston on Thursdays at 7 p.m. on HD3. I don't know who they're coming on today. Folks, check out our full schedule at kpft.org, where you can find programming from music to politics to medicine to the eclectic. KPFT is listener-supported public community radio station. So please remember that if you like what you hear, visit kpft.org and ensure we remain strong, a viable community radio station that provides news, programming, and information not influenced by the corporatocracy. This is KPFT 90.1 FM in Houston, Texas. We want to hear your voice. We want to hear your thoughts. So let's talk. It's all about you being a part of us and the entire body politic. Folks, remember, this is a call-in show. The number is 713-526-5738. Before I go to the blog of the week, I have to just tell you guys a little something real quick and personal. I went to the Democratic Convention this weekend, and I was one of the folks that got voted in to be a delegate to the National Convention. So I'll be in Philly. So thank you.
We are so proud of you.
And I just have to thank everybody for voted for me and those who didn't vote for me, but that's okay. We'll be out there in Philly for the convention. So, folks, I just wanted to put that out there to let you know that we are all doing what we have to do. But, folks, do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Yes, it's time for the weekly blog post. And, of course, now that it's time for the weekly blog post and our internet is not up and working correctly, it took a while to come up. But guess what? It finally made it. And here it goes. Look, folks, I read an article on Mother Jones recently titled A Brief History of How Kansas Republicans Destroyed the State. That gave the chronology of Kansas economic destruction. They subtitled it with an interesting subtitle. It was called Kansas Experiment in Small Government Created a Big Mess. The first paragraph of the article said it all. In 2012, Kansas Governor Sam Brownback launched a real-life experiment in conservative governance. He slashed income taxes for top earners and eliminated them for more than 330,000 small businesses, promising the cuts would be a shot of adrenaline into the heart of the Kansas economy. Instead, the results has been disastrous. By end of 2015, the state had lost nearly $3 billion in revenues and was behind most other states in job growth. And when the courts challenged the constitutionality of the bare bones budgets, Brownback and his allies launched an all-out war on the state's judges. The article also gives a chronology of Brownback's attempt to make the court his puppet by threatening its funding. How bad has the conservative economic ideology been? Well, folks, it's been really, really bad. According to the Congressional Economic Committee, in 2015, private sector employment in Kansas grew by 9,400 jobs, an average of 780 jobs per month. This represents a slowdown in job growth from 1,580 jobs per month added in 2014. In December, Kansas business added 1,800 jobs. Remember, in the U.S. economy that created 2.6 million jobs, Kansas got a measly 9,400. The U.S. Department of Commerce data point out that prior to Brownback's tax cuts, Kansas ranked 12th in the nation in personal income growth. After the tax cuts, it fell to number 41st. The school system is starving for revenues. Many are forced to close early. Kansas Center of Economic Growth released a report that said the following. This is striking, folks. When it comes to jobs and income tax revenue, Kansas is the flip side of its neighbors. Kansas's jobs growth is behind the region, and compared to the period before the tax cuts, our income tax revenues haven't recovered. Meanwhile, the region sees health growth. This matters because we were told revenue losses from the tax cuts would be recovered by explosive job creation. Kansas' fiscal faultiness is of its own creation. Other states aren't experiencing it. That fact, however, has not stopped attempts to make such a claim. Relative to the first 3 quarters of the year before the tax cuts went into effect, 2012, Kansas' experience couldn't be more different from the rest of the region. Neighboring states had more income tax revenue to make a public investment that improves quality of life. They've been able to support schools, save communities, health care, roads, and other essentials. Kansas, meanwhile, is seeing income tax revenues 11.6% below before the tax cuts were enacted. The kicker to all this lost revenue is that it's what it has done in the name of making Kansas a place for jobs and economic opportunity. What has transpired since the tax cuts has been anything but, whether looking at private sector job growth or all job growth period, Kansas is getting beat. In the 6-state region, which includes Arkansas, Colorado, Iowa, Missouri, Nebraska, and Oklahoma, Kansas is second from the bottom in both total and private job growth since the tax cuts went into effect. According to the proponents of the tax cuts, this was supposed to happen. Our revenue problems were supposed to be temporary once toroidal growth hit the state. Instead, Kansas is coming close to scraping the bottom of the barrel, both on state finances and job creation. Folks, supply side economics, folks, as I've spoken to about over and over and over again. Supply side economics, voodoo economics, trickle-down economics, or whatever you want to call it, has never worked. Ronald Reagan's economy was built on a subliminal Keynesian economy shrouded by debt. the semblance of a recovery. This was articulated best by Texas Senator Lloyd Bentsen when he said, "If you let me write $200,000 billion of hot checks every year, I could give you an illusion of prosperity as well." Well, he said prosperity too. Kansas had the opportunity to change course back in 2014. In fact, Democratic candidate Paul Davis was in the lead right up to the election. But polls do matter. Voters do matter. And most Kansans did not come out and vote. In effect, they voted for Brownback's policies with their absence from voting. There's a piece that I was supposed to add to the blog as well that I didn't. I just wanted folks, those of you who study economics, to remember one curve, the Laffer curve. That is what these trickle-down economics folks think about. That's the only thing they like to talk about, the Laffer curve. Laffer is spelled L-A-F-F-E-R. In my book, it should be the Laffer curve. In other words, what we should laugh at, because it has never and it does not work. Folks, the telephone number 713-526-5738, 713-526-5738. And now we have the honor of having CEO Jeff Blackwood online. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Alberto. Thanks for having me.
Great. Now, before we get started, I want you to tell us a little bit about who you are, because you are not some crazy out there who, you're a businessman. So tell me a little bit about your business. Tell me a little bit about you, and then we're going to get into what the hell has happened in Kansas.
How long do we have on this call?
Go at it, my brother.
I appreciate it. I founded this company in 2010. My background's in healthcare technology and technology in general. We saw the challenges that autism therapy centers had with the rapid growth in autism over the last few years. It was a struggle for therapists to keep up. So we decided to go in, help them, and use technology so that we can empower the therapists as they do great work with the kids that they're working with. And so since then, we've grown nationwide with our service and even have some international customers now. So it's just been an ongoing, continuous growth for the company as we're trying to meet the needs of those therapy centers across the country. Beyond, obviously being a part of the company, I have also been involved in a larger way with autism. I was vice president of the local Autism Society chapter, and I was actually the Kansas state representative for the Autism Society of America. So I'm actually I've been representing individuals with developmental disabilities, both at a state and at a national level, with our senator.
Oh, I guess we lost you. I think we lost him for a while, so we'll pick that back up. But anyway, folks, the telephone number is 713-526-5738.
Yep, sorry about that.
Okay, that's all right.
I'm not sure where I cut off.
No problem. You were telling us a little. Go ahead and start from where you stopped.
I was just saying that the last part of what I was saying was I have been a vice president of the local Autism Society chapter, but I was also the Kansas state representative for Autism Society of America. So I advocate on behalf of individuals with developmental disabilities at a national level with our senators, with the congressmen, et cetera. So I've been very aware of the politics and the actions of both the state government and on a national level that's been affecting individuals with developmental disabilities.
Now, I don't know you. What I know is what I read, what I found about you on the internet. In fact, what piqued, I have a thread that I follow with news, and I look for keywords and so forth. And yours happened to come up in the blog that you wrote. I mean, you wrote it on your website, and it really piqued my interest because it was like you're a businessman. Sam Brownback believe what he's doing in Kansas is actually something good for business. And here you are, that for some reason you thought that you just couldn't take it anymore, and you wrote look, if your letter, and this is how good the letter that the article that you wrote was or is. If that letter was written before the election, I think that would have had an impact on the election given where the election was at the time of the election. And it wasn't done.
Yeah, well, you wish you could go back and change things. I actually volunteered for the Paul Davis election because I did see some of the challenges that we were facing back then, but those challenges have just continued to grow. And in fact, I actually wrote this blog post in March of this year because we had the vision that we were going to be able to make a move. But I wasn't able to release it back then because so many things, as I was about to publish it, more things came out and more things came out, and it just continued to go downhill. In fact, today, to some of the points that you make in your blog post about education, the Kansas legislature is currently in special session, so they had to be called back for special session at a cost of $23,000 per day to the citizens of Kansas, by the way, because the funding program that they developed for the school system has been deemed unconstitutional. So they're supposed to be in there fixing it right now to make sure that the schools don't have to close down on July 1st, which is a week away. Instead of actually fixing the funding problem that they created, what they're trying to do right now is make a constitutional amendment to, one, change so they don't actually have to appropriately fund the school. They're trying to take words out of the Constitution for that. And two, then go back and be able to modify how the Supreme Court operates in the state of Kansas.
Right.
Because the checks and balances don't exist to them.
Well,
they want to be able to rule the way they want to rule.
One of the reasons that I wanted to have, first of all, a businessman and somebody who's been successful in running a business that employed a whole lot of people out there, the reason I wanted to on the line is because a lot of times when we speak here, as a political activist, some would say, well, you just don't understand how business work. And if you understood how business work, you understand why the conservative methodology or ideology is important. And by the way, I am, as left as I am, I like to entertain all sides because there is virtue in all sides of the discussion. Generally, you can find virtue in all sides of the discussion. Now, what I'd like you to articulate, first of all, is from the perspective not of an ideologue or anything of that sort, but as a businessman. What is it, you as a businessman, that made the things that Brownback did that made it better for you to move your company to another state, and a state that isn't really considered a very, very progressive state, So I mean, you actually found it better in the state next door. So why don't you tell me what are the processes that you went through to decide it was better for you to do that?
Well, it's with the tax cuts that were enabled back in 2012 for LLCs. The thing, we weren't really able to take advantage of them because we were building the business. Right. So it's not a matter of, oh my gosh, we got the tax cuts and now there's the potential. There's a rumor, and I will just say it as that because it's until it actually occurs, I sincerely doubt it will happen, that the tax cuts will go away. I don't think that's going to happen. But the reality is that the folks that were impacted by this, and the developmental disability community in our case, the therapy groups that were trying to serve these people were suffering from the privatization plans to go to privatize Medicare. So, in this conservative ideology, everything is better run by for-profit organizations than it is by the government itself. So they took Medicaid and they privatized it. And I believe the CanCare companies that took on this challenge are doing the best they can to serve people. But what ended up being the result is that now over 12,000 people in the state of Kansas are well beyond the federally mandated maximum 45 days waiting period for getting Medicaid services. So this is affecting the lives of individuals with developmental disabilities, but it's also affecting therapy centers as well. Those are the people that are our customers. And as we're a nationwide service provider, we've got customers from New York to Florida to California to Washington. I don't have any in the state of Kansas because they can't afford our service. They're so worried about having to try to pay their employees because payments are delayed 120 days plus. Wow. That they can't even imagine being able to take on an additional cost of software on top of it.
Right.
I personally know a therapy center owner who had to liquidate her 401k in order for her to be able to pay her employees in the waiting period that it took for them to ultimately get paid on the Medicaid claims that they submitted 4, 5, 6 months prior to that.
You know,
you can't expect your employees to just wait 6 months to get paid.
For those who believe in the privatization of everything and that somehow it's better, you know, what I try to explain to folks, and again, forget about ideology for let's just talk math, right?
Yep.
I believe in the private sector for things that require innovation. What you do in the way you use your software to bring things in to pass, etc., it's necessary. Innovation is best done when other people come up with all ideas. They don't have to go through the mechanism of. I tell you what. Before I go with my soliloquy, I have to get to a break here. So Shannon's going to take a break, and then we're going to be right back in about a minute. Okay? Great.
Thank you, Egberto. Okay, it is a hot and steamy day today. Currently 96 degrees and clear skies. It feels like well over 102. And later today, it will be mostly cloudy with slight chance of stray showers and thunderstorms. Tonight, just expect a few passing clouds and a low of 75 degrees. Tomorrow, expect partly cloudy skies in the morning, followed by overcast afternoon skies. A high of 93 degrees. And let's take a brief look at our roadways. There's a disabled heavy truck on the Northwest Freeway inbound at the 34th. That's affecting the right lane, backing up traffic to Fairbanks, North Houston. And there's an accident on the South Loop westbound at the Gulf Freeway, affecting the left lane and shoulder. And also on the Southwest Freeway, that's the South Sam Houston Tollway. Eastbound at Wayside, there's a vehicle fire affecting the exit ramp, backing up traffic to Colon. Slow going on the North Freeway outbound from Telephone to Tidwell. That's the look at your Houston area weather and traffic. I'm Shannon McCurchie, and you're listening to KPFT Houston 90.1, Politics Done Right with Egberto Willies.
Muchas gracias, hermana. Anyway, look, as I was saying before, folks, by the way, folks, this is a call-in show. We're talking trickle-down economics as it relates to Kansas and why it is that we want to make sure that the absolute form of right-wing conservative economies as we have in Kansas would be a detriment to the rest of the country. In fact, if you take a look at Texas, we have a partial thing that's what should I say? In Texas, we are partially conservative in the type of government we have, the kind of type of government policy. Believe it or not, the rank and file public workers in Texas are not all that conservative in their values. They work with a conservative government to try to make things as good as possible. But over here in Texas, the one problem that we have is the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act is not available, which means we're killing. Our government is killing about 7,000 Texans. I think I don't remember the numbers. It's somewhere around 7,000 Texans a year die because they cannot get the affordable health care because of what our government is doing. I imagine in Kansas it's just as bad. But one of the things I wanted to say before to you, Jeff, is what we do is we have this concept, this belief that somehow just making something private makes it better. And what I try to explain to some people is, depending on what you're working on, profit for that private entity is nothing more than an expense. And if they are making it cheaper for you, as an example, we're in Humble, Texas. They're now trying to privatize schools. They don't tell you that quite out, but we see all the lanes out there that show that that's what they're doing. What they don't tell you is that while they may say this school costs less to run, it costs less to run because they're paying teachers less, they're paying a whole lot less, etc., etc., etc. So nothing comes for free. At that point, profit becomes an expense. Now, as it relates to you, earlier I asked you exactly what were the reasons that what specifically as a businessman caused you to leave the state. So if you were to itemize specifically what caused you to leave the state, what would that be?
As it's really how the state has, handled the privatization of Medicaid, which has affected both our ability to have customers and also the ability for those with developmental disabilities to gain services. two, it's so as a business person, one of the things that draws people to Kansas, Kansas is not a huge tourist destination. We don't have oil revenues, those sorts of things.
Right.
One of the best things we had going for us was the education system.
Right.
And a lot of people would move here and go to work for companies like Sprint and Garmin and those major companies that are around here, and just be happy because they can move to a good community where they know their kids will get a quality education. And it's exactly, and that's probably the primary reason why people would move to Kansas, is because they know that Blue Valley School District that my kids go to has been consistently ranked among one of the top school districts in the country. And it's exactly that thing that they're messing with. The governor's office and the legislature have, again, underfunded the schools. We're losing good quality teachers. They have failed to make a $100 million payment that was due to the
pension.
teachers' retirement fund.
Right.
It's just the constant attack. Oh, they passed a bill here in the state that would allow prosecution of a teacher for presenting quote unquote objectionable materials. Well, who's to determine what material is objectionable? Can you no longer teach a sex ed class because a picture of genitalia is considered offensive to someone? Right. So how do you as a teacher operate in that environment? And it comes back to, with privatization, you can tell that privatization is the end goal. If they can so break the elements of government that we anticipate are needing to serve us to the point where government is totally unreliable, then of course you want to go to privatization because that's the best way to go.
That is a magic phrase that you use. In fact, that's what we believe a lot of folks on the right are attempting to do, make government so useless that you have to go private. But what they don't understand is, you as a businessman, I understand the profit motive. I'm a businessman. I had a software company for decades. That's not the issue. The issue is what should be private and what should be public, and where do you draw the line? Public schools should be public. Here like I mentioned earlier before, here in Texas, we are going through a big problem in the school district where my kid went, Humble School District, where they hired a person from the Douglas County in Colorado, which she had a terrible record out there, and one of the reasons she had a terrible record out there is that she was in fact pushing what you're talking about in destroying the educational system. Alec inspired, and here's a problem that we have, Jeff, and this is a serious problem. Most people, you and I may sit down and we may read the little intricacies that you can find in the American Legislative Council and all these other papers that we read, and we understand what's going on. What these politicians do these ideologically driven politicians do is they don't tell you specifically what they're doing. They don't tell you specifically that they're following some private group of corporations that are telling them specifically, if we do this, we can get onto the path of privatization, what they're doing in Humble right now. And Humble folks, if you're listening to KPFT right now, you better keep your eyes open. Forget about what the board said couple weeks ago, because notice as soon as I'm sorry for this right here, but I have to tell the folks in Humble, Texas something. Remember, as soon as they brought Elizabeth Fagan in, they decided to tell you about a meeting on Sunday, which was then to be held on Monday, about what they're going to do about these districts of innovation. Read up on the districts of innovation and read up how it was created by ALEC, the American Legislation. What is it? What does ALEC stand for again? You should know that, Fred. American Legislative Council. Okay? Look up for exactly what that means. They are in the process of attempting to backdoor vouchers and backdoor privatize our systems here in Texas. Now, what CEO Jeff Blackwood is talking about actually has merit within our own community. What is it doing? They have begun the destruction of their public educational system, something that they've wanted, something that Kansas was good for, having a good educational system, something that Texas has, a very good educational system. Do you really want what's happening in Kansas to happen here, where this man is moving his entire company It's costing you a lot, isn't it?
It's not costing too much for us to move. It's about a 10-mile move for us.
Oh.
And luckily all my employees can stay where they are.
Oh, that's right. So right on the border.
I mapped out where all my employees live, and it's equally inconvenient for them to be on Missouri side as it is in Kansas.
Okay, I got you. So they'll just go across the state line. I forgot how close things are. When you live in Texas, you think everything is far apart. But,
Yeah.
But Jeff, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the lines and see if anybody has some comments about what we're talking about. So let's go to line number one. Line number one. James, do you have a couple of questions?
Thank you, Egberto, for calling my call. I'm getting feedback, so excuse me for stuttering.
Are you sure that your radio is off, or?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay.
It just does that. But I'm sorry I don't have a comment about your conversation, but I just have a couple of quick.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. In the news, they're pushing America to consider the $15 an hour job. Well, that's to me, that's a shame that Americans let their minds be,
You're kind of breaking up. Can you, James? You're kind of breaking up. Is it possible?
I know.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, there are jobs out here that pay $40 an hour. Matter of fact, less than that, less than an hour.
Mm-hmm.
My yard man, I pay him $40 an hour, and he gets the job done in 20 minutes.
Right.
The guy want to fix my brakes in my car. He charges me $40. Takes him about 20 minutes. So the mindset that America doesn't let themselves fall into is pretty much a shame.
Right.
But they can't help it because they have the most powerful, effective weapon used against us, and that's the media.
Right.
You get the mind, you got the body.
Right.
Okay. So, and that's not coming out. I would hope that American people learn what's going on. It's a lot of things happening, but it's a way of spending life, and it's never going to stop unless we figure out that's been done.
James, that's why we have shows like this, and I'm sure our guest here can speak to the and look. If I'm gonna cut you off right now, James, because we have a very hard time hearing you.
Why doesn't Donald Trump wear a wedding ring?
Absolutely. I don't know about the wedding ring thing. I saw that Shannon put that out there. I don't know about that. But I tell you what, you can call back if you can get a better line if you have something else to say. But thank you very much for calling, James, okay? I'm going to ask the CEO to tell me about the $15 minimum wage. What do you think about that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what that was, actually.
Yeah. What I was going to ask you is, what do you think about the $15 minimum wage?
It's really tough. That's one that I really struggle with because I have employees that are making $40,000, and if all of a sudden you can go to work at McDonald's and make $30,000, then how does that value the work that these people are doing? And we're trying to run a profitable business here and work things up. So it's a challenging point, and I need to know more about what the impacts of it are. But
you answered the question, Jeff, exactly as I thought you. Again, you're a CEO of a big company that you would answer it, and I don't have a problem with you answering the question like that at all. In fact, I think that's great. Let me tell you what I have to say about that, however, and that is, I do want the $15 an hour minimum wage because guess what? Here's an interesting thing that a lot of people don't realize. If the minimum wage were indexed as inflation was indexed in the beginning, we would have had a minimum wage over $15, but it's a bit worse than that. Your income, your company, right? The money that you're paying, the $40,000 that you're paying your customer right now, or your employee right now, would actually be more than $40,000. Not because they're going to hurt your profits, but because the economy would be that much more vibrant. I did some studies as far as what the minimum wage, how the minimum wage affects the economy, and guess what? The real effect of increasing the minimum wage is nil. And for those who say some people may lose their jobs, guess what? Initially, some people may in fact lose their jobs, but the spur in productivity, not only the spur in productivity, but the spur in for all those who've taken Economics 101, the most important part of an economy is how fast money circulates. How much and how fast money circulates. And if you have people who can buy your products, that's the most important thing. And one of our stagnations right now is people can't afford to spend as this economy is able to produce. And that is one, so I mean, I can understand from a philosophical standpoint where you look at your balance sheet and you say, well, I am paying XYZ $40,000. If I get them upset, they can take a 25% cut, go work for McDonald's, and have a lot less responsibility. That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. But what I'm saying to businessmen like yourself is that when that $15 an hour percolates, you are going to be making a hell of a lot more money, which means somebody else can make a hell of a lot more as well. Keynesian economics has always worked. It has always worked. You can't listen to the ideology. It has always worked. But let me go to another call and then I'll come back to you. Okay, let's go to Ted. Ted, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Congratulations on being a delegate to the Democratic Convention.
Well, thank you very much. I am happy as well. Talk to me, my friend.
You've said a couple of things that, if I heard you correctly, I have to take issue with.
Please do.
One is that private enterprise is the driver of innovation. Universities, mostly colleges that are subsidized by government, are the places where most innovation works in this country.
Let me stop you right there, Ted, because absolutely I need to modify what I said, but I don't want to modify what I said yet because you are correct in what you said. I want to hear Jeff's response to that.
No, I agree. And, there is a certain degree of innovation that can be realized, obviously, from for-profit businesses, and there's a lot of it. But that innovation then gets challenged because of the needs for the balance sheet. I mean, you've got to weigh the degree of innovation you can do with your profitability there. So, yeah, absolutely. When universities are able to do that, that's great. Now, the flip side of it, though, from a university perspective, is they're not usually knowledgeable about how do people make money off of that. So that's why there's tech transfer programs out there,
right,
and the opportunity for businesses to work in tandem with the universities and take that knowledge and go out and market it and make it beneficial for people in the open market.
So, Ted, the reality is that there's not much of a, even though you called in to say, there's a huge something to take issue with. As far as I'm concerned, I needed to be more clear in what I said because you're absolutely right about that. Innovation. What I did want to say was, there's one thing that happens with business, and I think Jeff can attest to that, and that is when you have to make a profit. Oh, we lost somebody? Okay, we got to call him back. When you we had some telephone problems, Ted. So call us back, Ted, so that we can get on that issue. So while we do that, what I'm going to do is go into the soliloquy. And by the way, folks, this is a call-in show, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. With respect to what Ted had to say about it not being that you don't need privatization for free enterprise, he is absolutely correct. What I meant to say is privatization assumes whenever you have a private company, it is assumed within that company that a profit has to be made. And I am all for a profit being made. That said, above and beyond a profit being made, why you have to justify why should you make a profit as opposed to having something socialized. Like, I believe certain part of the medical system should be socialized. Why? Because what are you paying a profit for? Just to transfer money from from person X to person B? No. So therefore, items that don't require innovation, it is a good model. It's in fact a good model then to reward for the innovation. That's what I'm talking about. Now, Ted, I want you to call back in because you did mention you had another issue as well. Do you agree with that at all that I just said, Jeff?
To some degree, but I mean, obviously, there needs to be the motivation for the individuals to make the step to market that innovation out there, and that motivation is the capitalist economy we have. we could. It's a matter of how do we take this innovation that we know is going to be beneficial for people, and then get it to them, rather than having it just stay in a research laboratory.
No, I agree, and I don't know if that is in conflict too much with what I said, because what I'm saying is I don't there has to be a justification for profit, right? Isn't that? I mean, would you, if I just told you that I wanted X amount of dollars and you're not going to get anything out of it, I don't think you're going to give me any money, But if you can justify, well, for what you're doing, you're what I think what we call added value. If you're adding value to something, then we don't have a problem paying a profit there. But let me go to another caller. Scott, line 1.
Thank you. Yes, I recently had a dealing with the post office, and the problem was somebody was going to send me a package, and I gave them the wrong zip code. Well, I first went to the phone book, and numbers I tried didn't answer, or they were discontinued. So I went to my local post office. The clerk gave me a number to call. She also said it takes about 3 weeks for the post office to return an item to the sender. Well, I called the number, and they said they couldn't do anything without a tracking number. Now, that's very legalistic and bureaucratic. And I think it gives government a bad name. I'm wondering whether the Republicans have something to do with it.
I don't know about that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, anyway, it's government at its worst. This is not a criminal case where there need to be constitutional safeguards. Instead, they're doing things very strictly by rules for no especially good reason. Private businesses generally could not get away with this. They would drive away customers, and customers would take their business elsewhere. But this is a government agency with a monopoly.
That is true. Let me just say one thing, though. I mean, any business, the government does have a monopoly to some extent, right? And I think businesses can have a monopoly as well. Don't you agree, Fred? That
there are businesses that have near monopolies, like utilities.
Right. So I mean, I think I agree with what you're saying. I don't think. Just like I want Jeff to be able to have a business that work, I also want to have a work in government. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I mean, Jeff, is that mutually exclusive?
Oh, no, I don't believe so. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, there are aspects of government that are necessary for society. Again, taking care of those individuals with developmental disabilities and making sure that there's at least some funding out there. We can't depend on charity to step into the hole and try and help these individuals just in the hopes that they will get some kind of help.
Break in 2 minutes.
There is a governmental role, and there's a duty on us as citizens to support those individuals who need the most help in society. A core of my feeling, and that's exactly the role of Medicaid in this thing is to help those individuals that need it the most.
Absolutely.
Well, I do think the post office could serve customers better.
Scott, let him finish what he's saying, and then I'll bring you in.
I'm sorry. He can go ahead. I'm finished.
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
I do think the post office could serve customers better. Cut the bureaucratic stuff.
Okay, now let me just say one thing about post office and all the pieces of government that are non-functional or that function poorly. I think squarely the responsibility for government functioning correctly is on us, we the people. We have a tendency, whenever things don't work, to complain and throw our hands up in the air, but we don't do much about it. As an activist, when something doesn't go wrong, I try to get people together to say, let's go ahead and fight what's going on right now. When Texas decided that it wasn't going to provide the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act, we got together, and in effect, in as much as we failed thus far, it is something that we continue to work on. If the post office is as bad as you say it is our responsibility. Again, we can actually raise enough hell to make it better. The problem, again, is generally speaking, we get the government we are willing to fight for. And that's what happened in Kansas as Kansas is losing a great CEO to 10 miles away across the border. And just think about it. How many other businessmen do you know, Jeff, that are leaving the state?
I know a few, and I've actually been contacted by quite a few based on my letter that I had.
There you go. So that's the point. The point is, if we get, the reality is we do get the government we've elected, period. I mean, that's a statement of fact. And when we complain a lot about how government isn't working, a lot of times that is really how we are not working, because we are not willing to hold these guys accountable, or we are only willing to think ideologically. Let me give an example. We are in this part of town, we are a fairly conservative town, so we allow these conservative politicians, just because they have the name conservatives behind them, to have a free reign in the election system. And what that means is no matter what they do, it doesn't matter that they're stealing blindly. I mean, that they're stealing from the people in Texas blindly. Doesn't matter that they're doing that. They're conservative. And they put up the red, whites, and blues. And everybody goes ahead and they believe all the crap that they're telling them. When the reality is much different. The reality is they are a clear and present danger to most. In the case of Texas, to most Texans. In the case of Kansas, to most Kansans. Okay, let's go to line number 2. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you.
Line number 2. Come on in, Bobby.
Oh, Bonnie?
Bonnie, I'm so sorry. Bonnie, come on in.
Hey, Egberto, I
Yes.
met you. I recognized your voice at the convention.
Oh, thank you. How you doing?
Remember the blondes? I met you and your wife.
Okay. Where? Oh, yes. Come on in.
Okay, that's me.
Yes, okay.
So everybody needs to watch Education, Inc.
Mm-hmm.
It explains the whole process of how they're defunding all the schools and how they want to go charter. And it's because they want to privatize them so they can get all the government money. Same with the post office. The post office is, in 2006, you know about what they did.
Oh, yes, I know what they did with the pension of the post office workers.
They make the rules for the post office, but it's not run by the government.
Right.
Okay, so I just want to make
I mean, actually, that is what you just said about the post office is important, and I don't know the exact all the details about it, but I can tell you one thing. When they tell you that post office is insolvent, it's not true. What they did is they forced the post office to put up the pensions for, and you probably should know this, 75 years.
In a 10-year period,
right.
They were supposed to fund the pension plan for the next 75 years in a 10-year period. And no other company in the history of America has ever had that, criteria put on them.
Well, there's a purpose for that. The reason they wanted to do that is because if we can make the post office look like this very bad, poorly driven private, it's a private-public kind of a partnership.
Well, they want to privatize everything.
Right.
That's why
But you see, they have to be careful because the post office is a constitutional entity. Okay? So you can't just get rid of the post office. But what they would like to do is take all the profitable portions of the post office where UPS, FedEx, and DHL and all these other guys can make a buck $5 to deliver a mail that costs 41 cents. Actually, to put it bluntly, the post office is one of the most efficient run pieces of... if you take a look at what it costs FedEx to send the package and what it costs the post office to send the package, it is very different. The post office is a lot less expensive. And the reason it's a lot less expensive is because two things, right? Scale, and not only scale, but also there isn't a profit motive. Nothing against profit. I believe in DHL. I believe in all these other guys that are there. But do not on false premises go ahead and make the argument that somehow because this thing is not a pure private entity that is somehow inefficient. It's not true. The same goes with Medicare. Medicare is a lot more efficient than all, and hear me well, everybody. Medicare is more efficient than all forms of delivery, or rather all insurance companies, period. Why? Because the overhead, they don't have to pay a whole lot of executives. Jeff is a good executive, but I'm talking about insurance executives. But anyway, don't you agree, Jeff?
Well, yeah, I mean, as you were talking, I was just thinking, you don't think about the hundreds of letters that you get a year that are delivered correctly.
Right.
You think about the one that you didn't get delivered correctly.
Exactly.
And just think about the logistics that exist at the post office. It's incredible what they actually do on a yearly basis. And that's the same thing. It goes to the welfare example that's continuously trotted out there. You don't think about the millions of people that need welfare and use it and food stamps just so they can feed their kids. You think about the one guy who's out there trying to buy cigarettes and lobster with his food stamps. And that's the challenge with trying to hold
break in just a second.
These governmental entities to these standards is you can't look at the exceptions. You have to look at the overall benefit that it brings to society.
Absolutely. And the one thing that they don't say, I got to go to break real quick, and then I'll come back and say what I want to say. Thank you very much for calling in, Bonnie.
Mm-hmm.
Have a great day. We're going to go to a quick commercial. Commercial. We don't do commercial.
That's
I am
amazing.
so sorry. This is community radio. Come on. Go ahead.
Okay, it is currently 93 degrees and partly cloudy skies through the rest of the day. It feels like 103 currently. And there's a slight chance of a stray shower in our forecast, but tonight there's a low of 75 degrees. A mixture of clouds and sunshine in the forecast for Friday and a high of 93. Let's take a brief look at our roadways. There's still that accident on the South Loop westbound at the Gulf Freeway. That's affecting the left lane and shoulder. You're tapping on the brakes on the West Loop from 59 to I-10 and slow going on the North Freeway outbound from Telephone to Tidwell. That's a look at your Houston area weather and traffic. I'm Shan McCurchie, and you are listening to KPFT Houston 90.1 with Politics Done Right. Egberto Willies.
Muchísimas gracias. Now, you know what is so interesting? Times flies when you're having a good time and when you have a great guest. Now, Jeff, I mean, what I'm going to ask you to do, because we're running out of time now, what I'm going to ask you to do is to give me sort of a closer. Tell me a little bit about where do you go from here and what you think folks in Kansas need to do to make things better.
Sure. Well, you know, Egberto, I didn't stand anything to gain from writing this letter. I could have simply just moved my company and not had to look back at all. But I wrote the letter because I want to highlight that the decisions that we make on who we elect, the tax policy that we try and drive forward, have an impact on people's lives. And specifically, when you look at kids that have just been diagnosed with autism not being able to get services because it takes months for their Medicaid waiver to get accepted, or individuals with developmental disabilities having to figure out how they can travel 30 miles to get services when we close down a social service office in town. The tax policies and elections have an impact on people. And we're a society that is judged on how well we take care of all of the people within society. Yeah, let's be conservative with our money. Let's understand how our money is being utilized by the government, and let's make sure that it's being utilized effectively. But let's not have absolute slash and burn policies like those that have been put forth by Governor Brownback and the conservative legislature that he's elected, that are cutting services left and right and having an impact on the lives of real people out there. We got to know, and we've got to step up and use our voice through our vote, and make sure that we get people that are the best representation of what we want to be as a society.
Well, look, let me first tell you, Jeff, I want to thank you for being on the show because, again, I think you inspire a lot of people out here, those people who believed, you know, most CEOs just think otherwise. I mean, I think one of the reasons that letter had an impact on me is because it came from a CEO of a company, because it came from somebody who was willing to not engage from a business standpoint, but from a social justice, an economic justice point of view. So I appreciate that. And look, I thank you for having been on the show, my friend.
Thank you very much.
You have a great day.
Oh,
yes, sir.
And congrats, too, by the way, on your the delegate.
Oh, thank you very much. You have a good one, Jeff. Take care now.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Okay, line number 1 with Bill Kozier. Bill, how are you doing, my friend?
Hey, Berto. Great. I enjoyed listening to your guest, and I'm a great believer in the post office. And
Me, I am
anyway,
too.
I was going to do something totally different, though. Just a reminder to all your listeners that the LSB elections are coming up, and we really need some new people on the board. I've been on the board for a number of years on and off, and I'm not a candidate this year because I was reelected last year, but we do need some new people. And so I encourage people that anybody that might be interested in just trying to help, keep you going, making sure it's governed well, and we have some positive, forward-looking people on it. To go to KPFT.org and scroll down to the bottom and click on the link for the elections and find out more.
I think that is so important, Bill. I always told people I used to tell people on this show that they needed to come out and vote, and I'm talking about voting in regular elections, right? But there was like I tell you, I have very, very, very smart callers. And a caller called in one time. I don't know if you remember this, Shannon. The caller called in and they said, Egberto, stop telling people to just vote. Tell them to run.
To participate.
Participate. So I want to use...
And it's not hard. It's not hard to be a candidate,
Exactly.
And if we don't have good people running who are really interested in helping the station, then we'll have some other people.
Absolutely. So Bill, that is what you're saying is so important. So I'm going to make a call out there to folks. Look, you're listening to this show. You call in, and during the fund drives, we call and we ask you to be a part of giving money to the show. We want to ask one other thing of you as well. Be a part of the board. And it's not hard to do. So as Bill says, tell him again, Bill.
Go to kpft.org, scroll down to the bottom, click on the link for the elections, or you can go to directly to the website. It's elections with an S at the end .pacifica.org, and click on KPFT there, and you can.
It's important, folks. It's important. You only have a week, less than a week, because you have to come to get some of your signatures, all that good stuff.
Through the 30th.
Right, but we need you to start
next Thursday.
And there's some meet and greet opportunities. There's one, I believe, tonight at Discovery Green. There's one Sunday. There's one next Wednesday, I believe.
Will they have the application?
It's easy to get signatures.
Will they have applications there too, Bill?
Beg your pardon?
Will they have some of the applications, or do they have to download the packet?
You have to download the packet. Well, actually, I'm not sure. Our local elections observers might have hard copies available there. I'm not sure.
I may want to suggest to our team to have some there, because somebody there may say, I came because I heard this on the radio and I'm coming there. So, folks, listen to Bill. Listen to us all. Be a part. This is your radio station, so come and be a part of this radio station. It can be fun, and you are actually making a difference. Folks, this is Bill, I got to go. I see I'm getting the eye from Shannon, so I got to kind of close her out. Anyhow, folks, this is Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willis. I thank you very much for being a part of the show, and we will be back next week. You have a wonderful day. Adios.
Thank you very much for listening to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. You can personally reach me by sending an email to egberto@politicsdoneright.com. Remember, Egberto is spelled EGBERTO. Change starts with you. 90.1 KPFT gives you information not tainted by corporate interest. Please visit kpft.org and contribute. Let's ensure continued access to real information and news remain available to all. Again, thank you very much for listening to Politics Done Right.